In this video, we will discuss Bring It Together Object Snap Tracking in 3D Mechanical Example. If you'd like to follow along with this video, please open the file Bring It Together-Object Snap Tracking in 3D Mechanical.dwg located in the Working Files folder as discussed in the Working with this Dataset video. Let's bring it all together with some real-world examples of changing the UCS and using O-snaps and 3D O-snaps. First, let's verify our settings. Let's navigate to the drafting settings and make sure that polar tracking is turned on. Also verify that dynamic input is turned on. Verify that your 2D O-snaps are set to endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, and extension. Verify that your 3D O-snaps are set to vertex, midpoint and edge, center of face. And lastly, make sure that dynamic UCS is turned off. So what we're going to do here is we're going to place some cylinders that will eventually be holes in our detail here. The first example that we want to use, we want to draw on this plane a certain distance from the midpoint of this edge right here. Let's select the UCS icon, picking the square blue grip. Let's go ahead and simply move it to this location right here. Now what you can do is simply rotate the UCS, because it's not in the correct plane, to the correct plane of the actual 3D face. Picking the different circular blue grips of the X and the Y axes, you can now modify it so it falls right on that plane. Let's go ahead and start the cylinder command. Although we have not discussed solid primitives, we will discuss them in future videos. So let's just use O-tracking to acquire a specific point and then make sure that we are a certain distance off of that point. We'll acquire this midpoint of this edge here and move your cursor straight up. That way you're tracking a distance from the midpoint of that 3D edge. Let's go ahead and type in 20 units and press enter. Notice how it starts the cylinder command on the plane of this face at that distance. The size we want is 10 millimeters. Press enter, and then we're going to simply draw this cylinder for the height all the way down to the bottom. Eventually, we're going to subtract this out, so the height's not going to matter. Now, let's say we wanted to draw a hole that goes perpendicularly straight down based upon the flat plane of the bottom of this part here. Let's first change our UCS back to the WCS. Now, let's go ahead and repeat the cylinder command, and what we can use is O-tracking without having to actually change the UCS at all. Simply acquire the 3D midpoint edge here, acquire the 3D center of this face, go straight up, and when you get the intersection, it'll tell you you have the 3D midpoint plus Z colon Z, which means you have the intersection at that location. Start your cylinder. For the base radius, we want a radius of 5, press enter, and for the height, all we have to do is simply snap to the endpoint here. Again, these are going to be holes that we apply to this 3D solid. Now let's draw 2 additional holes, and for these holes, let's say they're supposed to be from this corner here, 10 units this way and 10 units in. So how would you normally do this with regular AutoCAD? Well, you could draw the object at that corner, move it this way 10, move it that way 10, but there's something called temporary tracking points, which allows us to do this without A, having to change the UCS at all, and B, run multiple commands. Let's go ahead and draw our cylinder. And all we have to do is do a shift right click and choose temporary track point. Then zoom in, acquire this 3D vertex, move your cursor this way using the extension O-snap. Now type in 10 and then enter. You'll notice a temporary tracking point is applied. You can use this tracking point to now track from there. Move your cursor this way, type in 10, and now press enter. And now you have the cylinder being created 10 units from that point this way and 10 units from that point this way. Really cool stuff. The size we want here is 5 units. Press enter, and again, simply use a 3D vertex to snap to the endpoint there. The great thing about temporary track points and snapping, of course, is it works with every single command. I'm going to use the copy command using grip editing to copy this object. I'll simply pick that blue grip right there, right-click, and choose copy. Now, using the same exact methodology we just performed, shift right-click, temporary track point, acquire this point, don't click, move your cursor this way, type 10, enter. You now have that temporary track point. Now track it going this way and type 10, enter, and there's our copied cylinder. Press escape a couple of times to end the command and clear your selection set. We now have all the objects we need to create our holes. Although we have not discussed the Boolean operations, we will discuss them in future videos. For now, navigate to the Solid Editing panel and choose Subtract. First, pick your main solid and press Enter. Now choose your individual small solids that you want to subtract out. Press Enter, and as you can see, we have our holes completed at the correct projections and angles, changing the UCS and using 3D snaps.